I said, "Hey, sweetie," and the alien princess flushed, then replied, "Yes, dear," with a giggle the first time Elias spoke the words. He did not expect the universe to change around him. He was a junior cultural liaison from Earth, recently assigned to the Lyrian Star Court, a place of crystal arches, floating gardens, and rules older than most human cities. Elias was not important. He was not a warrior or a noble. He was chosen because he was patient, polite, and good at listening. Humans believed that was enough. The Lyrians did not. They were tall, silver-eyed beings with soft, glowing skin and long ears that shimmered when they felt strong emotion. Their society was formal to the point of pain. Every word carried weight. Every gesture meant something. Even silence was a language. At the center of their empire lived Princess Elthira, only daughter of the Star Queen. She was admired across the galaxy for her intelligence and calm presence. Many believed she would one day rule with perfect balance. Others whispered that she was cold, distant, untouchable. Elias met her during his 3rd week at court. He stood at the edge of the Hall of Light, holding a translation slate, sweating slightly in his human suit. The ceiling above showed a moving map of the stars. The air smelled faintly of flowers and electricity. Princess Elthira entered with no announcement. She did not need one. The room quieted instantly. Courtiers bowed, guards straightened. Even the light seemed to bend toward her. Elias followed protocol and bowed too late. Elthira noticed. Her eyes lingered on him for a moment longer than necessary, not angry, curious. Later that day, Elias was assigned to assist her during a cultural exchange session. His job was simple. Answer questions about Earth customs, speak only when spoken to, never initiate informal address. He repeated the rules in his head as he followed her through the garden paths. Elthira walked slowly, hands clasped behind her back. Floating lights drifted between the trees. Her expression was thoughtful. She asked about Earth food, about oceans, about why humans smiled so often. Elias answered carefully. He used respectful titles. He chose safe words, but then something small happened. Elthira stopped near a pool of glowing water. She looked at a flower that folded when touched. She said softly, almost to herself, that she envied how humans touched the world without fear of ceremony. Elias forgot where he was. He forgot the rules. He forgot that she was a princess. With a gentle smile, trying to sound comforting, he said, "Hey, sweetie, it's okay to just be yourself sometimes." The words hung in the air. The garden froze. The lights flickered. Elias realized what he had done and felt his heart drop into his stomach. He had used a casual human endearment to a royal in public space. This was how diplomatic incidents began. This was how humans were sent home in disgrace. He opened his mouth to apologize, but before he could speak, Princess Elthira flushed. Her ears glowed a soft blue. She turned to him slowly, eyes wide, then she smiled. Not a formal smile, a real one, small and bright and surprised. "Yes, dear," she replied with a soft giggle. The world shattered. Courtiers gasped. Guards stiffened in alarm. Somewhere a crystal cracked. Elias stood frozen, unsure if he was about to be arrested or executed. Elthira looked around, realized the reaction, and quickly cleared her throat. Her smile faded back into composure, but the glow in her ears did not disappear. She dismissed the session early and walked away, leaving chaos behind. That night, whispers raced through the palace. The human had spoken forbidden familiarity. The princess had accepted it. Some said it was an insult. Others said it was a test. A few whispered something far more dangerous: bonding. Among the Lyrians, there was an ancient concept known as the heart response. It was rare and unpredictable. When a Lyrian responded emotionally to a form of address, it meant that the speaker had unknowingly touched something deep and personal. It was not romantic by default. It was not political. It was powerful. The Star Queen summoned her daughter at once. Elthira stood before the throne, hands folded, face calm. The queen studied her carefully. "You responded," the queen said. "Yes," Elthira replied. "Your ears glowed." "Yes. Why?" Elthira hesitated. That alone was shocking. "I did not feel threatened," she said finally. "I felt seen." The queen leaned back, troubled. Meanwhile, Elias sat alone in his quarters, replaying the moment over and over. He prepared his apology statement 3 different ways. He packed his bag just in case. A knock came at his door. 2 royal guards stood outside. "Come with us," one said. Elias nodded, heart pounding. They escorted him not to a prison, but to a quiet observation chamber overlooking the city. Princess Elthira was there waiting. She dismissed the guards and turned to him. "You should not have said that," she said calmly. "I know," Elias replied quickly. "I'm so sorry, I forgot myself, I meant no disrespect." She studied him for a long moment. "On Lyra," she said, "only family or bonded companions speak as you did." Elias swallowed. "I understand whatever punishment is decided." "There will be none," she said. He looked up, shocked. She stepped closer. "Instead, there will be questions," she asked about the word sweetie, about why humans used affection so freely, about why it felt warm instead of threatening. Elias explained as best he could. He spoke of comfort, kindness, of how humans often softened fear with familiarity. Elthira listened intently. When he finished, she said quietly, "When you spoke, my mind did not analyze, it responded." "That's bad, right?" Elias asked. She shook her head. "It is rare." Outside, the stars drifted. Elsewhere in the palace, factions began to form. Some nobles demanded the human's removal. Others argued he was a unique bridge between species. The Star Queen watched silently, already calculating consequences. Because if a human could trigger a heart response without training, without intent, without power, then humans were not weak diplomats. They were something else entirely, something dangerous. And Elias, sitting across from a softly glowing alien princess who smiled every time she remembered the word dear, had no idea that one simple phrase had begun a chain of events that would change two empires forever. The palace did not sleep after the strange moment in the garden. Lights stayed on behind crystal windows and quiet voices moved through the long halls like soft wind. Guards stood straighter than before and servants whispered as they worked. Everyone had seen the princess blush. Everyone had heard her answer, and no one understood it. Urin sat alone in her chamber, knees drawn close, fingers twisting the thin fabric of her robe. Her heart still beat too fast. She replayed the moment again and again. The human had not bowed, he had not used a title, he had not spoken with fear. He had spoken like someone speaking to a friend, or family. She had answered without thinking, "Yes, dear." The words had come out warm and easy, like something she had always known how to say. Her cheeks warmed again just remembering it. Across the palace, Kale stood at a tall window in the guest wing, looking out over the glowing city. Flying lights passed between towers, and distant traffic hummed like a low song. He rubbed the back of his neck slowly. He had not planned to say those words either. They had slipped out because the moment felt simple, and humans were used to simple moments. Only now did he realize how strange it must have sounded. He expected guards to arrive at any second. They did not. Instead, a soft tone chimed at the door. Kale turned as it opened, revealing a palace attendant. Her posture was stiff, eyes wide with nerves. "The princess requests your presence," she said carefully. Kale nodded once. "Of course." As they walked through the halls, Kale noticed how the palace felt different. Eyes followed him, not hostile, curious, confused, respectful in a new way. The attendant stopped before a private sitting chamber, smaller than the grand halls, filled with gentle light and living plants. She opened the door and stepped aside. Urin stood inside. She was not wearing royal jewelry now. No crown, no ceremonial colors, just a simple robe that shimmered softly with her natural glow. She looked younger like this, more real. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Urin laughed quietly, covering her mouth with one hand. "I have never answered anyone like that before," she said. Kale smiled, relieved. "I figured." There was no anger in her voice, only curiosity. "Why did you speak that way, human Kale?" she asked. He thought for a moment. "Because where I come from, kindness is casual. We do not always dress it up with titles." She stepped closer, studying him. "Your people speak with warmth so freely. Sometimes we forget how rare it is," he said honestly. Urin lowered herself onto a cushioned seat, gesturing for him to sit as well. He did. The room felt calm. Safe, she folded her hands. "The council believes humans are dangerous because you do not follow emotional restraint." Kale nodded. "That is fair." She blinked. "You agree?" "Sure. We feel things deeply. We say things without planning. We protect fiercely. We bond fast." Urin felt a strange tightness in her chest. Her people valued control. Humans valued connection, and yet in that garden, connection had felt powerful. The door opened softly, and an elder entered, robes flowing, eyes sharp. High Counselor Vale. He paused when he saw Kale seated beside the princess. "Interesting," he said. Urin stood. Counselor Vale approached slowly. "Princess, your reaction earlier has caused concern." She did not look away. "I am aware." He turned to Kale. "You spoke to royalty without protocol." Kale stood calmly. I did. Vale studied him. Why? Kale met his gaze because she spoke to me like a person, not a subject. The counselor's eyes narrowed slightly. Urin stepped forward, and I liked it. The room went silent. Vale exhaled slowly. The princess has been under observation since childhood. Her emotional responses have always been measured. Kale said nothing. Vale looked at Urin. You laughed today. She nodded. I did. The counselor turned back to Kale. Humans influence environments quickly. Kale shrugged lightly. We do not try to, it just happens. Vale straightened. The council will convene tomorrow. Until then you will remain under watch. Kale inclined his head. Fair enough. When Vale left, the room felt lighter. Urin let out a breath she had been holding. I am sorry. No need, Kale said. I have been watched before. She tilted her head. You have. He smiled faintly. Humans tend to make others nervous. She hesitated. Will you still speak to me that way tomorrow? Kale met her eyes. If you want me to. She nodded slowly. I do. That night, rumors spread across the palace and beyond. The alien princess who laughed, the human who spoke without fear, the council that did not know how to respond. Some said the human had used manipulation. Others said something older had been awakened. In the human embassy ship, officers watched reports scroll across screens. She answered him, one whispered. The captain leaned back. That is not small. No, it is not. The next morning, the council chamber filled. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered, feathers rustling, skin glowing, eyes flickering in many colors. At the center stood Urin, calm and radiant. Kale stood beside her, hands relaxed at his sides. Vale raised his voice. We are here to determine the nature of human influence. Urin spoke before Kale could. The human has shown me something. Murmurs spread. She continued. He treated me as equal, not as symbol, not as prize, not as threat. A council member hissed. That is dangerous. Urin turned to them, or it is honest. Kale remained silent. Vale asked, Human Kale, do you deny influencing the princess? Kale thought carefully. I influenced her by being myself. The room grew quiet. Vale asked, and what are you? Kale smiled gently. Human. The council debated long into the day. Some feared humans. Some were curious. Some felt something shifting. In the end, no punishment was declared. Observation would continue. As they left the chamber, Urin walked beside Kale. You stood very still, she said. I was letting you lead, he replied. She smiled again, openly this time. Outside, the sky shimmered with colors of dusk. Urin looked at the city she ruled, then at the human beside her. Kale, yes, sweetie. She flushed again, but this time she did not hide it. And somewhere deep within the palace, ancient systems recorded something they had never recorded before. A resonance, not power, bond. The corridor outside the crystal hall felt longer than before. Captain Elia's ward walked beside Princess Caroline, their steps slow and measured. The light from the glowing walls reflected softly off her silver-blue skin, and every few steps her tail fin brushed the floor with a quiet sound. Guards followed at a respectful distance, pretending not to notice how close the human and the princess walked to each other. Caroline's thoughts were restless. Since the moment Elias had spoken to her with such simple warmth, her world had shifted. Humans were supposed to be loud, rough, and careless with words. That was what the old reports said. Yet this human spoke gently, laughed easily, and treated her like a person, not a symbol or a prize. Elias noticed her silence. He did not want to push, but he had learned that sometimes silence hid worry. You okay? He asked calmly. She glanced at him, surprised by the question. I am thinking, she said honestly, about today, about what you said in the hall. He smiled a little embarrassed. Yeah, I kind of spoke without thinking, happens a lot. Caroline let out a soft laugh. On my world, words are chosen with care. Titles are everything. What you did was very bold. That bad? Elias asked. No, she said quickly, then slowed herself. Not bad, just different and somehow kind. They reached a wide balcony overlooking the capital city. Towers of crystal and living metal rose into the sky. Flying vessels drifted like glowing fish through the air. Elias stopped, resting his hands on the railing. Beautiful place, he said. It is, Caroline agreed. Yet it feels lonely at times. That surprised him. Lonely. With all this? Yes, because everyone looks at the crown, not the person beneath it. Elias turned to face her fully. For what it's worth, I see you. Her breath caught for a moment. She had heard poets speak words like that, but never to her, never so plainly. Before she could reply, a sharp chime echoed from the corridor behind them. One of the royal aides hurried forward. Princess, forgive the interruption. The High Council has summoned you again. There is concern. Saraline stiffened. About the human. The aide hesitated, which was answer enough. Elias straightened. If I cause trouble, I can leave. She shook her head firmly. No, you are my guest. If the council wishes to speak, then we will face them. The council chamber was colder than the crystal hall, both in temperature and mood. 12 councillors sat in a wide circle, their eyes sharp and calculating. At the center stood Saraline, calm on the surface, uneasy inside. Elias stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back, expression neutral. One councillor leaned forward. Princess, reports say you allowed informal speech from the human representative. Yes, Saraline replied. That behavior undermines protocol. Elias spoke before she could continue. With respect, I meant no disrespect. Where I'm from, warmth builds trust. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Another councillor scoffed. Trust is earned, not spoken. Elias nodded. I agree. That's why humans usually prove it through actions. And what actions have you taken? A third councillor asked sharply. Elias met their gaze without fear. My people crossed half the galaxy after receiving your distress call years ago. We sent aid ships, medics, engineers. We asked for nothing in return. The room fell quiet. That history was known but rarely spoken of. Saraline felt pride swell in her chest. Humans have shown kindness without demand, she said. Is that not worthy of trust? One councillor studied Elias closely. Princess, you are young. Emotions can cloud judgment. Elias frowned. She's not weak because she feels, he said firmly. That's strength where I come from. The councillor bristled. You speak boldly for an outsider. Maybe, Elias replied. But I'd rather speak honestly than hide behind titles. For a moment, it seemed the council might order him removed. Saraline stepped forward, her voice steady and powerful. This discussion is over, she said. I will not punish sincerity. The human stays. Silence followed. Then slowly one councillor inclined their head. Another followed. Reluctantly, the rest agreed. Outside the chamber, Saraline released a breath she did not realize she was holding. Elias looked at her with concern. You okay now? She nodded. Thank you, you defended me. He shrugged, felt right. They walked again, this time toward the royal gardens. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly under their feet. Saraline stopped near a pool of light blue water. Elias, she said quietly, on my world bonds between species are rare, feared even. He listened carefully. I get that. But humans, she continued, humans form bonds easily. You make family where none existed. He smiled sadly. We had to. Earth was harsh. We survived by sticking together. She studied his face, seeing not a warrior, but someone shaped by struggle. That is why your words felt powerful, she realized. Not because of romance, but because of belonging. He blinked. Never thought of it that way. A soft chime sounded again, this time from Elias' communicator. His expression shifted as he read the message. What is it? Saraline asked. Border alert, he said. Unknown fleet entered your outer system, not broadcasting. Her eyes widened. That is not possible. Our shields are strong, Elias finished. But strong doesn't mean unbeatable. She looked toward the sky, fear creeping in. If this is an attack, Elias placed a steady hand over his chest. Then humanity stands with you. She looked at his hand, then at his face. You would risk war for us. For you, he corrected gently, and because it's the right thing. Sirens began to echo faintly through the city. The peaceful glow of the gardens felt fragile now. Saraline straightened, resolve hardening. Then come, we must prepare. As they moved quickly back toward the palace, side by side, something unspoken formed between them. Not a promise, not yet, but a shared path. High above, unknown ships slipped through the stars, unaware that they were about to face not just an alien empire, but the quiet, stubborn heart of humanity. And beside a princess who had learned the power of simple words, a human walked forward, ready to prove that those words meant everything. The Hall of Stars was silent in a way that made even seasoned warriors uneasy. The walls shimmered with ancient symbols, glowing softly like distant suns. Every noble, general, and council elder stood frozen as if time itself had paused. At the center of it all stood the human, calm but alert, his hands relaxed at his sides. Beside him stood the alien princess, her cheeks still faintly flushed, her posture proud but her fingers lightly touching his sleeve as if drawing strength from him. The words she had spoken earlier still echoed in the minds of everyone present. Yes, dear, she had said, followed by that soft giggle that no one could explain. It was not childish or mocking. It was warm, familiar. and deeply unsettling to an empire that had never heard its royal blood speak that way to anyone, especially not a human. The High Regent was the first to move. His many eyes narrowed, his crest rising in disbelief. He took one slow step forward, his voice sharp but controlled. He demanded to know what bond existed between the princess and the human, and why such words were spoken so freely in a place meant for absolute formality. The princess did not release her hold. Instead, she lifted her chin and spoke with steady confidence. She said the bond was one of trust, earned not by force or command, but by kindness, patience, and courage. She reminded the hall that the human had saved her life during the border collapse, shielding her with his own body when even elite guards had hesitated. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The guards remembered that moment. The reports were clear. The human had moved before orders were given. He had not known her status at the time. He had simply seen someone in danger. The High Regent turned his gaze to the human and asked why he had acted. The human answered simply. He said he did not see a princess then. He saw a person who needed help. That answer struck the room harder than any weapon. Among the alien species of the Empire, status defined worth. Rank decided who lived first and who waited. To hear a human dismiss such structure without anger or pride was deeply disturbing. The princess tightened her grip slightly, her tail flicking once behind her in a clear sign of emotion. She spoke again, her voice softer now, and told them that during her recovery, the human had spoken to her as an equal. He had shared stories of Earth, of long nights watching storms, of laughter during hardship, of how humans often survived not because they were strongest, but because they stood together. She admitted that she had laughed at first. Humans were classified as fragile deathworlders with short lives and unstable emotions. Yet, as days passed, she noticed something different. The human never demanded respect. He earned it without trying. The council elder of war shifted uncomfortably. He reminded the hall that humans were unpredictable and dangerous. Their history was filled with conflict. Allowing such closeness with royalty could be seen as weakness. The human looked at the elder then, his expression calm but firm. He said that humans were dangerous when cornered, but loyal when trusted. He added that if the Empire feared kindness, then perhaps it was not as strong as it claimed to be. A sharp intake of breath spread through the room. No one spoke to the council that way. Guards tensed, weapons humming softly. The princess stepped half a pace forward, placing herself clearly between the human and any threat. Her voice rose, not in anger, but in command. She declared that any harm toward him would be considered harm toward her. That declaration shattered centuries of protocol. The emperor arrived moments later, his presence announced by the deep vibration of the floor itself. He was vast, ancient, and powerful, his form covered in ceremonial armor etched with the history of the empire. His eyes settled first on his daughter, then on the human. He asked for silence, and the hall obeyed instantly. The emperor questioned his daughter not as a ruler, but as a father. He asked her if her feelings clouded her judgment. She answered honestly. She said her feelings sharpened it. She explained that the human had shown her something no tutor ever had. That leadership was not about being feared, but about being followed willingly. The emperor turned to the human and asked if he understood the weight of his actions. The human nodded. He said he knew his words and behavior could change alliances, and that he would accept responsibility for any consequences. But he also said he would not apologize for treating someone with respect. The emperor studied him for a long moment. He then asked a question no one expected. He asked what the human wanted. The hall held its breath. The human answered carefully. He said he wanted peace. He wanted understanding between their peoples. He wanted humans to be seen not as tools or threats, but as partners. And he wanted the princess to be free to choose her own path. The princess looked at him then, her eyes glowing softly, emotion clearly visible. She did not speak, but the way her grip tightened told everyone enough. The emperor leaned back, his armor shifting with a deep metallic sound. He said that empires rose and fell based on how they adapted. He admitted that humans had already surprised the galaxy many times. He declared that this moment would not be judged by tradition alone. He ordered a trial, not of combat, but of understanding. The human would accompany the princess as an official envoy to several contested systems. He would represent humanity not with weapons, but with words and actions. If he failed, humanity would lose favor. If he succeeded, a new alliance would be forged. The hall erupted into stunned silence. The princess smiled, a genuine expression that lit her features. The human bowed his head slightly, accepting the task. He knew it would not be easy. Many would test him. Some would hope he failed. As they left the hall together, whispers followed them. Some spoke of scandal, others of change. A few quietly spoke of hope. Later, aboard the royal transport, the princess finally released his sleeve. She looked at him, her voice lighter now, teasing but sincere. She asked if he still thought calling her sweetie was harmless. He smiled and said it seemed to work. She laughed again, that same giggle that had started everything, and replied that humans were far more dangerous than the Empire realized. Outside the viewport, stars stretched endlessly, and somewhere among them, the future shifted its course. The human's name was Aaron Cole, and he never expected that two simple words would echo through an alien palace and change the way an empire looked at him. He was not a warrior, not a noble, and not someone important by galactic standards. He was a cultural liaison from Earth, chosen because he spoke calmly, listened carefully, and treated everyone the same no matter who they were. The palace of the Lyrian Star Dominion rose like a living crystal city. Its towers curved like growing trees made of light blue stone, and the air shimmered softly with energy fields that kept the temperature perfect. Alien guards stood silently along the halls, tall and elegant, their skin glowing faintly like moonlit water. Every movement in the palace followed ancient rules, traditions older than many human civilizations combined. Aaron walked carefully, hands relaxed at his sides, breathing slow. He had learned early that nervous movements made alien diplomats uneasy. Today was another official meeting with the royal family. He had attended many before, always formal, always distant. The Lyrian princess, Althea, sat beside the queen on a raised platform of floating crystal. She was young by her people's standards, but already respected and watched closely. Her silver-white hair flowed down her back like liquid light, and her eyes shifted colors softly with her emotions. She had been trained since birth to show no weakness, no personal feeling, and no informal behavior. Aaron had met her several times. Their conversations were always polite, careful, and limited to diplomatic matters. Still, something about the human fascinated her. He bowed the same way to servants as he did to queens. He spoke gently even when others shouted. He listened more than he talked. On this day, the meeting had been long. Trade routes, shared science projects, border safety. The queen finally dismissed the council members one by one. Aaron turned to leave, as he always did, following protocol. But as he passed near the princess, something unexpected happened. Althea dropped a small crystal data slate. It slipped from her hands and rolled toward Aaron's feet. The room went still. No one was supposed to approach the princess without permission. Aaron did not think. He simply bent down, picked up the slate, and held it out to her with a small smile. "Careful," he said softly. "Wouldn't want you losing important work." The guard stiffened. A few nobles inhaled sharply. The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. Then Aaron added without thinking in the same gentle tone he used back on Earth with friends and family. "Hey, sweetie." The words were harmless to him, casual, warm, something his mother used to say, something coworkers laughed at. But the translation field did not soften it. The Lyrian language translated it as a deeply familiar phrase, one used only between bonded partners or family. Silence filled the hall. Princess Althea froze. Her skin shifted color instantly, glowing bright lavender, the unmistakable sign of a Lyrian flushing with emotion. Gasps rippled through the chamber. No one had ever seen the princess react like that in public. Aaron realized something was wrong the moment every guard moved at once. His smile faded and his heart dropped. He had offended her, or worse. "I apologize," he began quickly. "I meant no disrespect." Althea looked at him, not with anger, not with command, but with wide eyes and something like surprise mixed with joy. She took the data slate from his hand, her fingers brushing his briefly. Her glow deepened. Then in a soft voice that carried across the silent hall, she replied. "Yes, dear," she said, and then she giggled. It was a small sound, light, completely out of place in a royal chamber where laughter was almost forbidden. The palace erupted into chaos. Nobles whispered loudly. Guards looked to the queen for orders. Advisors panicked, already calculating political damage. The queen herself stared at her daughter as if she had just witnessed a star collapse. Aaron stood frozen, face warm, heart pounding. He had not meant to do anything like this. He opened his mouth again, ready to apologize a second time, to kneel if needed, but the queen raised her hand. Silence returned instantly. She studied Aaron carefully. Then she looked at her daughter, who was still glowing softly, her expression bright and unguarded in a way the queen had not seen since Althea was a child. "You may go, human Aaron," the queen said slowly. Aaron bowed deeply. "Thank you, your majesty." As he turned and walked away, he could feel eyes burning into his back. He did not see Althea watching him until he reached the doorway. She lifted her hands slightly and waved. Another shock. Another whisper storm. Aaron exited the hall feeling like his legs might give out. He leaned against the cool crystal wall, trying to understand what had just happened. His translator pinged softly, recalculating cultural meanings far too late. Inside the chamber, the queen finally spoke. "Explain," she said calmly. Althea lowered her gaze, still glowing faintly. He did not mean harm. His words were gentle, honest. "That phrase is reserved," the queen replied. "I know," Althea said. "That is why it mattered." The queen studied her daughter for a long moment, then she dismissed the court. Elsewhere in the palace, Aaron was escorted to his quarters. No one spoke to him, but no one restrained him either. His mind raced. Had he ruined negotiations? Had he embarrassed the princess? Had he started a conflict between worlds with two careless words? On Earth, it would have meant nothing. On Lyrian, it meant everything. And somewhere deep within the palace, Princess Althea sat alone, holding the crystal slate to her chest, replaying the moment again and again. The way the human had spoken to her, not as royalty, not as a symbol, but as a person. For the first time in her life, she wondered what it would be like to be seen as simply herself. And the galaxy had no idea what that small thought would soon awaken.